Get rolling here on YouTube.
All right.
Mhm. Hello, YouTube folks. Get this stuff tweeted and blue skied. All right,
Shining at me.
and record. Hello there, and welcome to the Hawkeye Hotspot podcast in a very odd time at a very odd time of day and week. Um, day, week, and time, yes. I am Rob Howe, joined by Scott Docterman. I am not a night person. I'm more of a morning person. So this could be a struggle for me, but I hope to do the best that I can. It is Monday, December the 30th, a little before, it's about 5:45 p.m. Central Time, post Music City Bowl, Hawkeye Hotspot podcast, 27-24 Missouri, the exact same score that Iowa won by in the 2010 Insight Bowl. So we've got some alignment there on that. Obviously, unfortunately for Iowa, on the wrong side of it this time, had a 24-14 lead early in the third quarter and could not close it out. Um, the offense, 102 yards, 3 points in the second half. But with this team, Scott, I thought the offense did enough to win. But then you look at what happened in the second half and could have done more. But this was more than just the offense today. This was the defense too. Two long drives in the first half, and then couldn't make plays down the stretch as well. General thoughts before we dive in?
It's really an uncharacteristic Iowa loss in some ways, and I'm not saying about just the defense not finishing, but significant penalties. I mean, like the out of bounds by Quinn Schulte, that really killed them on that one scoring drive late in the game. That was critical. An interception. I mean, in a game with no turnovers up until that point, that interception was massive. And so you had those kinds of issues. And then there were, I don't know if tone deaf's the right word, but there were situations where I'm just like in the first half when they elected to punt, they took the penalty to punt. And I'm like, you're not reading the room right here. The reason, you're in an issue because the defense is struggling against a pretty good Missouri team, but I thought it was kind of like watching, I don't know, Michigan State or watching UCLA. I mean, they were without three of their best playmakers, and then in the fourth got hurt.
Mhm.
I didn't think this was, Brady Cook's a good player, but I didn't think this was like some overwhelming team. You're not playing Ohio State or anything. So I thought that the option to punt when you need your offenses have your best punch right now, you need to keep punching with it to protect your defense and rather than vice versa. So I thought that there were some strategic errors. I thought there were some mistakes that were surprising, like Quinn Schulte getting the personal foul. And then I just thought that when they needed big plays, they didn't come up with them at the right times. And so they lost by 3 to a team that was ranked, the team that had it was Vegas push 3 points,
Yeah.
but still, when you have a 10-point lead in the second half and you're Iowa, feel like you should win it, and they didn't.
Yeah, it was just an uneven game. Talking about some drives late, Scott. These were kind of in succession, or I think they were in succession. Third and two, around midfield, there was confusion. Looked like Hayden Large was unsure what he was doing. Then guys came to the sideline. Jacob Gill and I think it was Jarriett Bowie they both looked like they were confused.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then they come out of that timeout, and we know it looked like the left side of the line blocked down right. Sullivan went left.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and give Corey Flagg a hell of a lot. He's a heck of a. He's Jay Higgins for Missouri,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Really, he
Yeah.
made a great play. But that was the first one. Kind of what did you see there? Maybe before the timeout and then after the timeout. Looked like some confusion after the timeout. I even jumped early on that.
Yeah. That was the last play. Yeah, that was the one where they messed up on the sneak or whatever. And
Yeah,
then
that was the last one. The first one was,
with 8:45 left,
and
and they had the ball at the 30, their own 33, and it was 3rd and 2, and they called a timeout, and then Bo Stevens fell down, the
okay.
block, and then they had a 1 yard loss. And it's just there was something. It just something missed. And whether it was at times I don't know if they were trying to say, Brennan, you got to throw the ball and not run it. And then he was trying
Yeah.
to throw it, and that's not his specialty. That series that you mentioned with, after the score was tied, and then late, you had Jacob Gill dropping a pass.
That was the next series, right?
Yeah. And that's with
Third two.
3rd and 2. And then you get to this, situation where the dump to TJ Washington was great after the sack, where, you're like, he was holding the ball too long. You need to get rid of it. Johnny Walker.
Johnny Walker.
Yeah. What
Got
a
some
great
Johnny Walker stories I'd rather not share.
what a great name to play in Nashville with that name.
Yeah.
Had a second sack, minus 13 yards. And then the dump to TJ Washington was really good. And then they had a pass that was close. And then that sneak, as you mentioned, the whole left side, I thought, jumped off sides.
Yeah, they were offside.
And they didn't call it for whatever reason. It looked like he got the ball late, and then, jumps over the pile, I was going to say Cooper Flag, which I'm sure he could too, but, and stopped him kind of in his tracks there. It just, at that point, it was like such a rush. And it's like, slow it down. You still have, you have a minute left. Get your first down, then start getting, if you need to spike it or you need to do something else, do it from there. But it is just the lack of chemistry and cohesion on offense, whether it's players who aren't good enough, players opting out, injured players. Sullivan's back for the first time. I mean, we got to remember, this is the first time in like 6 weeks he's played. It just, everything felt off. At times it felt good in the they ran for what,
166.
166. So at 4.5 yards a carry, I mean, those are winning numbers traditionally for Iowa. That's the offensive side. And then as we saw in the defense, it just wasn't there this year, and it wasn't there in this game. There was no turnovers. You needed to force a turnover. Needed to get off the field a couple of times early, and they couldn't do it.
Yeah, confusion too in the back end on both of the touchdown plays. Wampa on one, and I don't know. It looked like Higgins something happened on the second one where Higgins ended up having to try to chase a receiver on that one on the second touchdown.
Yeah, and then Deshaun Lee got beat pretty badly several times, and that to me, if there's a disappointing aspect to this season as a whole, it's probably the way the secondary played. I thought it would be an elite secondary. I thought with the players you return, I thought Castro could be an All-American. I thought I'd see Wampa take this major step forward. I thought Quinn Schulte would be as solid and better than he has been before. Harris wasn't there for this game, but then I thought the others would take steps up, and I think they did a little bit, but it was still, through the course of the year, they really struggled. And in this game, there was just so much open territory. And some of it was that the defensive line didn't get enough pressure, but a lot of it to me was just how open and, how off they were playing. And they're not playing Luther Burden.
No.
If he was in this game, watch out. I mean, he's an NFL guy. He's a first-round NFL guy. And Theo Weiss is pretty good too, and he got knocked out by Wampa. But I think that to me was probably, if there was one area that I thought Iowa was a net negative that shouldn't have been. It was secondary play.
Yeah, and I'd probably put second the inconsistent pass rush. It was there at times this year, but again today, a lot of time. Cook had a lot of time, and they put him in a nice pocket, and when he got squeezed out of there, he squeezed forward and usually ended up getting yards that
Yeah.
way too. It was not well played by the defensive line either way, getting to him and then containing him. Um, and then when he had time, obviously he was picking his spots, and that's sometimes the worry with a veteran quarterback against Iowa, Scott.
Yeah.
If it's a veteran guy who sees what is there and is patient, he's able to make the throws and make the plays. And Cook did that more often than not today. He had some drops, he had some bad throws, but overall, he made throws that were there and didn't try to do too much.
Yeah. He reminded me a lot of Dan Persa,
Yeah.
and just, his ability to run. He wasn't necessarily a runner, but he squirted out of there and got big runs when he needed to. I mean, I think Brendan Sullivan's a better pure runner than he is, but
Yeah.
but he was able to be effective. He was able to hit targets when they were open and find the available openings. And he's got 9,000 yards in his career. He was a 4-year starter in bowl games. A really good player, and I think Iowa respected him. But I'll also say this, and believe me, I'm not saying this as um, sour grapes or anything like that. But I also question the officiating. There was a lot of holding on pass rush that wasn't called. I could rewatch it and see if it was the same way for Mizzou's pass rushers,
Yeah.
but I don't really care. But I did feel like early on and kind of consistently, there were a lot of times when you saw, I would say you saw nameplates being diagonal, which means they're being grabbed and
Mhm.
tossed, and there were no calls. And I'm like, there is a center judge and a referee in the backfield. They should be watching a little bit more of that. And I don't even remember if there was a holding call. So that was probably on the officiating. But that said, they didn't call any really on Iowa either. So, just don't worry about it. But, I think overall, it's kind of this season in a microcosm. This game was, Rob.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost a close game. Their losses all except for the Ohio State one were close. I know the 12-point loss at Michigan State, but still, it was a game they could have still come back and won. Um, it just showed that they had clear deficiencies. Areas you thought that were strengths on defense weren't, and offense just couldn't quite bail them out. Even though they looked good at times, they even looked good at times today, I thought.
Yeah, I do. I thought the running game was good. You figure without Caleb Johnson, maybe they
Mhm.
um, look for some different ways to move the football, but they didn't need to. I thought they moved the ball pretty well with the run. Both guys looked good.
Yeah.
Moulton and Jazz both ran really well, ran hard. That wasn't a problem. Just not much in the passing game. It was efficient, but it wasn't very threatening. I
Mhm.
think what do you have? Two incompletions, something like that. It wasn't many.
He was like 11 of 14, I want to say. Let me
Yeah,
tell you here.
it wasn't many. He had the pick though,
Yeah.
and they just
14, 18. Yeah.
yeah, couldn't really push the ball down the field very
Yeah.
much. And the throw, it was almost like you talk about microcosms. The throw to Ostrenga early was a beautiful throw, beautiful
Mhm.
catch. Then he had a little bit after that, he has Ostrenga open for a throw for a first down, and he misses him.
Mhm.
And that was kind of the yin and yang of Brendan Sullivan today. And I think overall, Scott, that's kind of, as you said earlier, the experience that we've had with Brendan so far is the kind of the inconsistency. And I wonder just kind of what the ceiling is as a passer at this point. He's what, 5 years into his college career? I mean, how much more upward mobility is there from here to get better? Obviously, it's more time in the system, more chemistry with his receivers, many of whom are coming back. Um, it's just this wasn't it started like the game. Okay, we're going to feel good about Brendan Sullivan going into spring football in the offseason. I just think there are still unanswered questions after this game.
this is always a problem with football more than any other sport, and in this case, it would have been a major one, which is you we have a tendency to swing so hard with the pendulum,
Yeah.
of emotion after a win or a loss that you really struggle to kind of gauge what it is, and see what it is. I mean, if he would have, let's say, in that last minute, he would have got the sneak. Somehow he throws it to Jacob Gill, who bursts off for 30 yards, and then they try to run it to center the ball, and instead Kamari Morton bursts out and scores a touchdown. They win. Then everybody's feeling good about him as their quarterback, going, you know what, we could work with this guy. He's all right. And what I look at him, and I think he's limited. He's the ideal backup. He's the ideal change of pace quarterback, kind of the position that he played most of the year. But to win you a championship, and you have to view it in those terms, I don't know that I see that. And Iowa has to search for the quarterback that can do that. If they believe it's Hank Brown, fine. If that's what they believe, we'll judge it accordingly, as we always do. And of course the fans will, if they throws it incompletion on third down against Iowa State. but if he's but if it's not, go get your guy. Now we know, Mark Gronowski entered the portal this weekend, and I talked about him. That's one that, I don't know, probably for all I know, in the last couple hours he committed somewhere or something, but I haven't noticed. That to me is, go do it. I don't want to hear any excuses about it, and if he goes to Washington State, it's like, well, why are you going to Washington State? I know your coach is going there, but what does that give you? It's a league you can't even if you are 10-2, you're not going to get to the playoff, because that doesn't count for the group of 5 yet. And you might as well go to the NFL. So
It's just limbo. You're just
yeah,
in limbo if you go there.
right. So if you go to Northwestern, that's probably something that's, understandable. Zach Luan, his former OC, is there. He's from the Naperville area. You could probably do something there. But then I also look at it like, you're Iowa. Step it up. Go do it. Go make it happen. If that's a guy you think can win, and he's a winner, and he's a good player, and he's better than what they've had in a long time. Go make it happen. And if you don't, then I don't want to hear it. I don't want, well, he's, every other school does it. You got to do it too, and we've seen Minnesota go crazy in the portal and pick up like 12 or 13 guys. They haven't lost that many. Do it yourself.
Yeah. I mean, you make the run with what you have NIL wise, and I mean, it's like bringing in a prized free agent. You sell him on the vision, and you show him the highs of what the offense looked like this year. And I want to be clear, and I think you'd agree with me, Scott, as frustrating as the second half was today to watch Iowa's offense, it did some really good things in the first half. And I think overall this season, you can kind of see it if you look close enough. It's just that finding consistency, and that's often the biggest hurdle. But I think if you sell it right, you can sell it to somebody like Gronowski and just say, "Listen, we're going to pay you because we believe you can be the guy to find that consistency to get this offense to the next level."
Right. I think what you do is you look at who you have at offensive line returning. We have an all Big Ten center. We have an All-American caliber right tackle who didn't finish the game. I don't know what happened there, but
I saw that, and they certainly missed Logan Jones today
yeah,
too. I don't want.
absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to dog
Yeah.
on Tyler Ellsbury in his last game, but two significant snap issues.
Yep.
I mean, they were pivotal. And Bo Stevens, I think, will take that leap. And then you've got a couple of other guys that have that potential. Could Mike Mislinski be a guy? Are you still going to try to get another tackle, or do you have somebody you can build into that position? Whatever it is, I mean, you still can say, look, we've got 3 returning starters up front from an offensive line that blocked its ass off this year. That the sacks were really low comparatively the last handful of years. The running game was running at a clip better than it has for a long time. I mean, you got a lot to sell there. I think, for whatever reason with, Luke Lachey, the nicest kid I think I've ever covered. He didn't have a great year. I don't know if that was quarterback or what, but it just didn't happen. I think Addison Ostranga and Zach Ortworth are quality tight ends coming back, and then I think you look at the wide receivers and they're showing some growth. Can you go out and get another one to add to it? Do you need to add another one to it? Either way, I think you show the big picture. We've got a team that's built to compete. We just need somebody that pulling the trigger to get us in position to where we can compete at a high level, and you've already done it. So I would pitch that for sure, and give them the money. You're going to have to do it.
Yep.
And if that costs you somebody on defense, fine. Quarterback is not equal to a linebacker or a cornerback. You've got to win. You can only win with quarterbacks. You look at the 8 teams still left alive. They're good. Will Howard, he was a transfer. Dylan Gabriel, he's a transfer. Riley Leonard, he's a transfer. Texas aren't, but and then Georgia has a guy that
yours is a transfer.
Well, that's right. God, I forgot because he's from Texas, but yeah, he went to Ohio State for that semester.
Got $1 million and left town.
Nice. Yeah, that's true. Arizona State, Levitt's young, but very talented, and let's see, Aller's not, and then Boise State, of course. So you just but transfers are a part of the game, and you've got to. But they all have good quarterbacks. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. And Iowa won't be there until they have a good quarterback. Because, the couple of times they went to the championship game, Rob, we knew they weren't going to win.
Yeah.
And that was one position where you just said, yeah, maybe if they had Nate Stanley, even they'd be competitive. But, CJ Beathard was the kind of quarterback you felt like they could win with. Him, probably Brad Banks, maybe Stanzi, maybe Tate. Those foursome is probably the guys.
Yeah, I mean, Iowa's maximized what a team can do without without a quarterback, really,
yeah, right.
Or without a productive difference maker at quarterback. If you look at this decade, the amount of games that Iowa won, I don't know if they could win any more with the quarterback play that it had this decade. And it's also unsustainable. You can't keep doing that. And you see games like today where I don't know if Brady Cook was the difference in the game, but he was a big part of the game and Missouri winning because he did what he needed to do. He made plays when they were there, and Iowa didn't have anybody doing that and hasn't had anybody doing that this decade. And coming out of today, I'm just, again, the first half, I was like, all right, this is something to build on. You put together a decent second half, and now people are feeling good going into the spring. I think coming out of this one now, people are like, is it going to be better next year?
Yeah.
And better enough.
Better enough. And that's why you've got to go get your guy. And I'll give them some credit because they tried that with Cade. That was a strong move right out of the portal. You go get your guy. That's your guy you want. You grab him. And it did not work. And I don't know that it's really their fault, but ultimately it says Iowa Hawkeyes, so it is their fault. I think that's the same way now when you're looking at the portal. I mean, Bo Prabula, Ethan Iowa, I can't pronounce his last name. They finished second for both of them. That sucks. But sometimes you're going to have to win. You're going to have to, in a portal environment. And if it's somebody like Gronowski, and I'm not saying that he's going to be first team all Big Ten, but the dude's Walter Payton Award winner at the FCS level. He won back-to-back national titles, and this year they went to the semifinals, and he's a winner. And he's a tough kid, and he's the kind of kid that everybody responded to at South Dakota State. And he's from Naperville, which is an area you recruit at a pristine level. Go make it happen.
2 guys in that FCS semifinal last week would have looked good today. Either one of them.
Yeah.
One from up the road and one from across the river a little way, a little bit
Yeah.
more than across the river, but you get the point. And
Right.
yeah, and the kid could end up just going to the NFL, but he's probably going to get some nice deals here to put the NFL off for a year, and we'll see how it shakes out for him.
Well, and that's what I would do if I were him, because I don't think he's a high draft pick.
No,
I think he's in that late round, probably free agent pool, which means you're really subject to the whims of what
yeah,
happens. Maybe you get a $50,000 signing bonus, which Uncle Sam takes signing bonuses more heavily than they do the salaries. And then you get cut, or you end up on a practice team and you're back and forth back. That's a tough way to live. And he may end up that way anyway. But kind of like with Nick Jackson, you stay. Extra year, you're going to make more money and more guarantees, and you're a starter, and I know there might be some people, well, what about Brendan Sullivan? At this point, it's a business. The equity that he put in, I think, was strong. You like him. If he's here, he's here. But I think at this point, you've got to think about, how do you compete for a championship? And you need to go get a championship quarterback, because as we know, the defense now is largely vacated, and they're going to have to replace them. And that usually means growing pains.
mm-hmm.
And you're going to need to win with more offense. And that includes a better quarterback. You can't do what you did in previous years, and they played so razor thin to the edge and the margins that it wouldn't take much to go the other way. So I think that go get your quarterback. And I'm sure that, if it doesn't work out, they'll say, well, he wasn't really looking at that. I don't want to hear that. Go get.
Yeah.
My patience is limited, and I'm sure fans feel the same way.
What's a half a decade?
Yeah.
All right. Time to take a break here. Support for the podcast comes from Systems Unlimited, celebrating 50 years of providing services to people living with disabilities and mental health needs throughout East Central Iowa. A list of their services and upcoming events can be found at sui.org. That is sui.org. We're going to hear from a few more sponsors right now, and Scott and I'll be back on the other side to talk a little bit more Music City Bowl and beyond. Hang tight. And we're back on the Hotspot podcast post Music City Bowl to let you know that switching is easy. We do it all the time. We switch on the lights. We switch TV channels. Some of us switch partners while square dancing. Scott's giving us a head shake. That's a stretch. But what's not a stretch is how you can switch and save with State Farm. In fact, State Farm agent Chad Birch right here in Iowa City can switch you over so you can start saving today. Chad and his team are ready to welcome you to the State Farm neighborhood with Chad Birch. It's easy to switch and save. Just give them a call when you want the real deal. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Hardcore Hawk fans got to have a Kinnick Scoreboard Entertainment Center. Contact Fanatics Furniture at 319-750-0005 or KNICK3615 at gmail.com. Scoreboard Entertainment Centers. Be hardcore. 319-750-0005 or KNICK3615 at gmail.com. Black Angel Restaurant, downtown Iowa City. Perez Brothers owned and operated, formerly of El Banditos, Perez Tacos. Black Angel Restaurant, downtown Iowa City. Check them out. You will not be disappointed. Talking about the defense a little bit, Scott, hopping back in here. Scott Dockman from The Athletic joining me, Rob Howe. I think overall this season did not live up to expectations, I think, for most of us. And, we talked about some of the issues with the young cornerbacks and some breakdowns in the secondary and, not having the consistent pass rush and now losing a lot of the guys from that side of the ball. I just wonder what the plan is here in terms of where they're going to go portal wise and where they feel strong about guys taking a step forward. To me, that's really interesting. And obviously quarterback is number one. That's the priority this offseason. but you got to maintain being a good defensive team in this league. And I don't think Iowa's going to be bad defensively, but more question marks than I can remember in quite some time.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Because there's they when you bring all those guys back,
Yeah.
then it's a one-time thing because then they're all going to leave, and that's really that's where they stand right now. I think you got to go kind of position by position to see, do you feel good about him, or do you feel they need reinforcements? And I think up front on the defensive line, now that you have essentially, I think three guys kind of figured out for sure. And Aaron Graves will be back, and Ethan Herkett, is returning for an extra year, and then Max Llewellyn. They'll all be seniors. Those three, I think, stand out. And then probably Jonah Pace coming in from Central Michigan. And then you look at who are your rotators. You got Brian Allen and you got Jeremiah Pittman. Do you need more? I do think they do. And where I would say defensive tackle is where I feel like they probably still need more, because that one's a harder position because you're taking on double teams. You're taking on 600 pounds on a lot of
Yeah.
snaps and two linemen right off the bat. And you've got to hold your position. So that's a man's job. And so you're going to need to go get somebody probably else to fill that. And maybe it's just a guy that's your number 4, or maybe it's a guy that you feel like can compete for starter snaps or what, I don't know. But on the edge, I like Brian Allen too. I know he's not healthy right now. I think the next one is probably going to be, you're going to have to decide, can any of these young guys step in and fill in? And that's probably the same, with like Maddox, Borcherding, Johnson. Can he take that a step up? Can a Joseph Anderson with his elite athletic ability take a step in the spring? Can Chinette, oh my God, his name from
Chineke.
Chineke. He looks like he's got a massive starter kit. And Devin Kennedy, and can those guys take that step to become, at the end of spring, the guys that make you go, maybe we see something there. Maybe they can develop. Or do you say, I don't know, I think they're still a year away. That's defensive line is where it starts with this team. I know they're built strategically back to front, but it all starts up front. If they're not getting pressure on the quarterback, if they're not slowing down the run for the linebackers, then this team is kind of ordinary on defense.
Yeah. And, you're investing in Jose Epinesa.
Mm-hmm.
He's you don't get a lot of guys that are ready made that can step in right away, but he's certainly of that caliber. Doesn't mean he will. But like you mentioned, Anderson and some of those guys that came in last year, he's a little bit more advanced than they are arriving. But that doesn't mean they won't take steps forward, having an extra year than he has on campus. And he's not going to be here till the summer either, which that it's a little bit of a drawback for him. But I think his brother came right in too. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
He stayed and played basketball at Edwardsville as well, and threw the disc and the shot fairly well.
Yeah, he could have been an Olympian, I think, in that sport, if he would have stuck with it. Yeah, I remember him coming right in and making an impact as a true freshman.
Yeah.
And he looked like he was still young. I mean, I remember that Penn State game with Saquon Barkley, and he was in there. He had a sack, but by the end of the game, he was so gassed.
Yeah.
That he just, the pass rush was so fierce. And, there were times you could just see it's like me getting up off the couch, it's like, oh, and that's the way he looked, trying to get after Trace McSorley, who I think that's probably a great comp for Trace McSorley is a great comp for Mark Gronowski, honestly.
That is good.
I think that's your guy. And so, yeah, I think Yosei can step in. He is an athlete. He's built like his brother. I mean, you see him play basketball. He's just like AJ. He's got it. He's a guy that probably could fit into that rotation too. It's just, I looked at it, a few years ago when they started really messing around with a stand-up pass rusher. Joe Evans kind of fit that role. Amani Jones tried at first, and then they went to Joe Evans. You kind of still need that they didn't have it this year. You just need a different kind of change up speed rusher off the edge. And I thought maybe one of the linebackers could have fit that role or something. And I think that's what they've got to do next year. But I do agree with you that Epineza could be that guy. But linebacker though, Rob, it's that's going to be fascinating to watch because when we look at the handoff from Jack Campbell to Jay Higgins is probably similar to what we're thinking right now with Jaden Harrell. That Jay had been around for a while, kind of wondering, is he a guy or is he just a guy? I mean, is he Anthony Hitchens or is he more like Quentin Alston, who's okay, but Anthony was an NFL guy. And it's obvious that Jay was better than both of them.
Yeah.
One of the greatest players they've ever had, and people too. So to replace, can Jaden Harrell do that and adequately, or can he take that step forward? Carson Shire is the best athlete of the group and has been, but he hasn't been healthy. Is Jackson Rexroth, a Kyler Fisher type, or is he better, or is one of the young guys? Because I think there are three now going to be redshirt freshmen, and the two incoming freshmen are elite football players. Some of them are going to see the field right away. 2 or 3 of them might even hit the depth chart by fall camp. And so I think that remains to be seen. Can one of them emerge? Can one of them jump up to be a redshirt freshman starter or highly valued backup? And then the secondary, based on what I saw today, I think you do need to go to the portal. I think you need to go get a number 1 corner if you can.
Yeah, and how the safety situation shakes out as well. I thought they missed Kyler Fisher and Conan Entringer today.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they missed both of those guys on defense, and those are little subtle, absences, but little plays here and there that you're watching, going, I think that play would have been made. But they're going to have to figure all of that stuff out on that side, and you hope Jaden Harrell can be what Jay Higgins is, but that's a high bar, right? So you got to figure, okay, maybe that level of play isn't as high. You need a little bit more. You're gonna have to make sure that wherever Zach Lutmer is, if you're using him at cash or whatever, he looks like a player.
Yeah,
put him in the right seat on the bus. You know what I mean? So I think there are pieces there. It's just could be some growing pains early on, but I do think I'm with you. I think they need another defensive lineman. Wouldn't hurt to get a experienced linebacker if you can get somebody that fits well. And then in the secondary, and I saw Sam Phillips is visiting USC now. So,
yeah,
man, it's just like we talked about a seller's market. Hopefully they can get a receiver. But it was nice to see Bowie make some plays today, and Terrell Washington, I think he's a guy. I think he's a Tyrone Tracy type guy that I'm not saying he's Tyrone Tracy, but a guy you got to get the ball in his hands. I think there are some pieces here.
You're right about that with TJ Washington, Terrell Washington. I mean, to get that first touchdown. And I'd really like the fact that they used him at running back too, because the mistake that they made with Tyrone Tracy was borderline unforgivable as an offensive coordinator. You have a guy who's run for 1,000 yards in the NFL, and you didn't really use him at all in a position where the position that suited him. You put him where you thought he should be, but it wasn't working. So then you just didn't use him, and that's just bad coaching, frankly. And I think with Terrell Washington, if he fits that role, you got a coordinator who likes to see him and moves him around and does different things. And if you have that kind of 3-headed monster with Moulton, Patterson, and Washington going into next year, I kind of like it. And then, again, you make Moulton and Patterson your kind of 1-2 punch. And then, maybe a Brevin Dahl, fits his way in there a little bit. You got Terrell Washington, if he can play receiver, slot, running back when needed. Good. But the receiver market for Iowa, when you're 131st in passing this year, and you were 130th last year because there was one less team in FBS. You know, you've and they're in front ahead of all the service academies. That's it. You've got work to do because receivers want to go to the NFL. They want to go somewhere where they can play, and all they have to do is say, look what happened to Charlie Jones when he was at Iowa versus when he went to Purdue." You know, and he's a fourth, fifth receiver of the NFL, but he's also in the NFL, which he got drafted. That wasn't going to happen at Iowa. He might have gotten in as a free agent. So I think, and then speaking of which, remember how hard they went for that Division II guy, Isaac Tesla,
Yeah.
2 years ago? I'm watching him.
Where did he go, to Arkansas?
Yeah, he made play after play after play at the Liberty Bowl the other day, and I'm thinking,
I missed that game, but that would have popped out to me as well.
Yeah.
I would have been like, "Hey,
yeah,
the meme with
Yeah.
Leo DiCaprio."
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I did right away. I was like, "Oh, okay, there he is." So
Now, hopefully Seth Anderson can stay
Yeah.
healthy. That's one where, they just, his absence, that was a guy, you think about coming into the season, you would have probably said he and Caleb Brown were 1 and 2, your top two receivers, and didn't get much out of either one of them. So again, back to the drawing board. Can they keep pushing forward? Can Howard and Bowie take that next step? Where's Alex Moda at?
I think
Reese
he's on
Van.
defense now, isn't he?
Did he move to defense? I
think
saw him on a
so.
scouting. I saw a picture of the scout team, and he was working on that. Maybe he is on team. That wouldn't surprise me. I always thought he'd be a better safety than a receiver when I saw him in high school. But Reese Vanderzee, I'm kind of getting to the point where you were just kind of alluding to earlier. They may have to fix the receiver problem from within through some development. Jacob Gill was a good scorer. Maybe land somebody like that again and just kind of keep building it up. And then maybe you can, once you've established something there, you can attract transfers.
Yeah, because you're not going to get anybody that's a name player unless you're going to pay through the nose. It's kind of like free agency when you're a bad team in the cold north. Like when Buffalo was bad before Josh Allen, or Detroit, and up until the last few years ago, even though they played indoors, it's like, I got to live in Detroit, and that's the way people would think. And it's like, you got to overpay. It happens in baseball too. If you're a bad team and there's a free agent, it's like, well, we're going to have to, he might take less to go to a winner than he'll go to you just so he can play and make money. And that's kind of the way where you're at now. You've got to try to persuade guys to come, and you're going to have to probably find somebody at a lower level. You look at Nick Easley would have been, is the type of player that you can go get. He's a JUCO kid, but okay, are there any D3 guys? Are there any JUCO guys? Are there any FCS guys that, now if you can get Gronowski and Griffin Wildy to come as a package, shut it down. I mean, they're your two biggest playmakers going into next year. I mean, Wildy had like 70 catches, 12 touchdowns, 1,200 yards or something like that. He's a sophomore from Sioux Falls. And then you look at it and go, how the hell did you not offer that guy? These are the ones where, to me, it's like anytime South Dakota State or North Dakota State gets a kid, they should just should we offer him, and maybe they did with Cade Peeper, but the Cam Miller thing is still just,
you just wonder sometimes with the development, if those kids would have come here, would they have developed into what they are at those places with more, you think about Cam Miller and the guys that have gone to North Dakota State, South Dakota State. South Dakota's much better now than it used to be. I mean,
yeah,
those guys all run more modern offenses, or derivatives of kind of what Iowa used to do, but now with what I think Lester is trying to do. I think he's trying to get there. It's going to be a matter of, can they get the guys to run that? And again, I don't want to pick on just one play, but that pass to Ostrenga in that game earlier when Iowa had some momentum in that, and he misfired on that throw. Those are the types of plays where good teams continue to make those. And it almost seems like Iowa in important plays like that, and I don't have them documented in my head, but missed so many layup plays that kill drives.
Mhm.
And, even today with the sack,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
it just was like, all right, Mason Richmond let him outside. Sullivan stumbling, off of that. And it just, the Murphy's Law with Iowa's offense. And I think Lester's the guy. I do. I hope he gets enough to work with.
Yeah. Because he wasn't, like this year, you could tell, and he even talked about it, that I ran what worked. It wasn't necessarily what I wanted to run,
Yeah.
and that's like anything. I mean, it's like, hey, you do what you can with what you got, but
Yeah, we'll throw it a couple times, but guess what? The guy wearing number 2 in the
yeah,
backfield probably deserves to get the ball a lot.
right. And when you've got the quarterback issues, especially late in the year, when you're lining up with a walk on and you're
Yeah.
just hoping that he gets the snap, and then yeah, Murphy's Law, you're all Big Ten centers out for this game, and those 2 missed snaps really cost them. I
Yeah.
mean, and and then I don't, again, Tyler Ellsbury's, had a, really strong career. It's too bad he didn't get a chance to really, if he could have taken a second, a 6th year, he probably would walk in as a starter at guard, but, either way, that's what happens. And, there was just some uncharacteristic Iowa mistakes. And then there were some totally predictable Iowa mistakes. I go to that first half where it's 4th and 2, you're at the 38, your 3rd down pass was too high. I think that was one you're referencing to
Yep.
Ostrenga. It Go get your first down, put your best foot forward. I mean, at that point, I mean, I think Mizzou had the ball like 17 minutes and Iowa had it for like 7,
Yep.
because of the kickoff return,
Two
but
things here on that. One, they learned it after doing it twice.
yeah,
Taking the kickoff, trying to return the kickoff against the Iowa's coverage team, and then kicking to Weechin.
yeah,
Two critical mistakes that whoever's coaching special teams on Missouri screwed up big time.
yeah. And that's why I picked Iowa to win by 3, because I thought Iowa's special teams would tip the balance, and it did pretty much. It was just the other areas that Iowa couldn't make happen. They couldn't
And
stop.
Missouri ended up with 50+ yard field goals. If they were inside of 50 yards, he probably would have missed, but
Yeah, right.
makes
Exactly.
everything. That's such a weird dynamic.
Yeah, I mean a 56-yard field goal to win the game. I mean, God,
You
you
think
know.
about what they lost, how they lost to Missouri and Iowa State.
Yeah, I know, 250+ yard field goals. And then you look at Michigan State where they gave it 5 field goals in the first half,
Yeah.
But the offense did absolutely nothing in that half. I mean, nothing.
Yep.
It was almost like last year's Citrus Bowl bad, or the Big Ten championship bad in that game. There was no excuse for it. And so I don't know.
Did you happen to notice James Reeser on the sideline today?
I did not know.
He was there. I thought I saw him once, and then late in the game, he had a jersey on, but wearing sweatpants, and
Oh, yeah.
just found that odd.
I wonder, one thing Kirk said in one of his press conferences this month was something about the guys that they kind of told him that there weren't going to be any spots, that they could all stay with the team through the bowl game and everything else, go to the bowl with them and everything. And you kind of wonder if that might have been one of them, that, it was a kind of a miss.
Yeah.
You hate to say it, it's a kid, but you go to Jacksonville, you get this guy, he's not your quarterback. If he's going to be a wide receiver, he'd probably rather go somewhere near home. He's, anyway. And it's like, well, okay, you can stay with us through the bowl game, work with us, but that sort of thing. And that could very well been the case there, because that's what a lot of the walk-ons are doing as well. Is, they know that their time is short, but they deserve it. They deserve to go
Oh,
down
yeah.
there and get some goodies and hang out with the team. I mean, you want to see it through, so, yeah. But no, I
Yeah, I
would.
missed that. Obviously, not doing the beach stuff anymore. I missed that he was talking about. Um, but weird being in the portal like that. I could see the walk-ons more than a portal guy being in there, but they
But
did ask him. They had him change positions, and he was pretty accommodating to them. So I could see them being
Mhm.
cool and saying, "Yeah, come on down the bowl, hang out with us."
Yeah, and even Kirk said it even about the guys in the portal, like some of those walk-ons
Yeah.
too, but everybody that's in the
Hmm.
portal, they had that chance and, except probably Cade, but
Yeah, I don't think that's working out.
uh,
I don't know, man. Anything else you want to talk about here? Anything that stands out? I think we kind of looked back at this game and looked forward. We'll obviously have a lot of offseason to try to figure out. And again, for people that didn't listen to us last Thursday, there is another transfer portal window
Mhm.
in January here. So it's going to be a flurry here, I think, for Iowa, which has gotten two players so far in Jonah
Mhm.
Pace and Hank Brown. And how many more you think they had?
5 or 6.
That's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, but compared to everybody else, they're way, way low.
Yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
know, and I don't fault them for that. I mean, this is a developmental program. If you have your option of developing your own guys versus bringing in your own guys, you want to develop your own. And they've done it, I think, for the most part, they've done a really nice job of supplementing over the years. You have your misses. There's gonna
Yep.
be misses. Everybody, you're missing high school recruiting too. I think they've been okay and for the most part in that area. I do think that they're going to have to probably get again another defensive back. Even if maybe it's a situation where T.J. Hall and Deshaun Lee or John Nestor or somebody else, wow, takes that leap and then they become a guy. Good. That's what you want. But it wouldn't hurt to go get another guy to say, hey, we want you to compete with these guys too. Or if you know that this guy's a player, say, okay, it's yours, but but they're going to fight you for it. On the back end, I think there's some real talent there. I like Cohen Entringer. I know he's hurt. I think he's a player. He reminds me a lot of Dane Belton,
Yeah.
and Dane's been starting. I mean, hell, he had a interception the other day and a million tackles and 14 tackles or something like that. But then you had, and I think Xavier, there's something there. But it's kind of untapped. It's inconsistent. And once he figures it out, once comes out, he's gonna be a star. But it's kind of like it's time. It needs to come out. I think Zach Lutmer is a guy that's going to be a really good player. I mean, like kind of a steal from that Western Iowa. Not saying he's Cooper, but I
Yep.
think he's going to be a multi-year starter, probably their cash, And so I think either Xavier will be free or Cohen will be free and the other will be strong. And then you have Lutmer at cash. Your corners, guys that have played a lot, they've taken a lot of lumps. And we've seen that in the past too, where guys like whether it was Hankins, he struggled at times and got benched a couple of times. And you've seen it with Riley Moss struggled and, badly. Julius Brents, and he's now, a pretty good player in the NFL. And, so it's possible for them to grow. But I think, and then you never know if a Jalen Watson or somebody like
Yep.
that steps up. Maybe one of the freshmen we don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about Khalil Tate since he's been to campus. I haven't heard one word.
Been dinged up here and there. He hasn't been totally healthy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't heard much either, other than he's battled some injuries.
Yeah. And so you're just kind of like, all right, when are we going to hear some more?
Yeah.
I know what Tegan Davis was, hurt when he came in. Is he going to be a guy? So there's just a lot. Alex Moda, if he did make that move or if it's permanent, can he fit into that role? Can he be like Greg Maben?
Hmm.
You know, so
Yeah.
there, who struggled a lot early and then became a really good player and ended up in the NFL for 7 or 8 years. So there's just I wouldn't throw away everybody, but I just think that the concerns on the defense are you're starting new. You got to really get some good depth going, and your guys that were young and inexperienced have to grow a lot, and you got a schedule that's going to be awfully difficult to do that. It's not this year was the year, and when you look at what Iowa, the teams that they beat, um, that had winning records are two.
Mm.
Minnesota, and Nebraska. I don't think I'm missing anybody. Washington could be the third if they win their bowl game, and Illinois State doesn't count to me, they're FCS.
Hmm.
So, and then the only other ones they played with winning records are Iowa State, Ohio State, and Mizzou. So they did not play a very staunch schedule. I mentioned this in an interview earlier today that Rob, that if Iowa would have won the games that they should have won, let's say they were 11-1, that Ohio State's the only loss and it was 35-7, same score, and they're 11-1, it would have been the most frustrating month of your life as an Iowa fan, because you would have experienced everything that Indiana did except more, because you're
Yep.
not scoring like they are. You're not dominant offensively like they are. So it would have been really frustrating. So, um, you would have been hated universally. That team got in the playoffs instead of Bama, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's we're going to have a lot of off season to talk about a lot of this stuff. If you're not watching the Iowa men's basketball game right now, the Hawkeyes are ahead at the 8-minute first half timeout, 40-15. They were a 34-point favorite over New Hampshire. So there you go. So that's on BTN right now if anybody wants to watch it, because Scott and I are going to get the heck out of here and start drinking. I'm going to start.
Yeah. I gotta start packing pretty soon too.
Yeah, Scott's heading out to the Rose Bowl, Oregon, Ohio State. You leaving tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow. I thought about leaving today, but my son's in town from the AmeriCorps till Monday, so I just wanted to steal an extra day. So we got to, even though before the Iowa game, we got to go out. We hung out at a coffee shop together, stuff like that. So
Cool.
stuff I don't get to see or do because he hadn't been here since July. So yeah,
That's the stuff you can't pay for, man. It's
yeah.
priceless, and you need to do that stuff. And I've gotten a lot of family time this week too. It's been enjoyable, and I'm going to get back to it now and let Scott do the same. We appreciate you guys jumping on with us here for the rare Hawkeye Hotspot post game press conference, bowl press conference. But we'll be back next week. We'll come up with something to talk about, I'm sure, portal wise. Looking ahead to next year, catching up some more with men's and women's basketball. The women are on New Year's Day against Penn State. That's a Big Ten Plus game, folks. So you're going to have to pay up if you want to watch the Hawks on the road at Penn State on New Year's Day. Enjoy all the football games. We don't have picks, right? We did our picks Thursday, so we got all those done, right?
I believe so. And then we'll just have to wait until after,
Yeah.
the games coming up, see if Penn State and the winner of Oregon, Ohio State, where they end up,
Who you like?
Huh?
Who you like, Ohio State or Oregon?
Ohio State. I think
I'm
it's
with
going to be
you.
really close. But man, the rewatching that first game, I mean, it was, to me, it's apparent when they are both playing at a high level, they are the two best teams in the country. And can Ohio State duplicate what it did against Tennessee? And can Will Howard be consistent enough and make all the key plays like he did against Tennessee? If so, here's the thing. Oregon is the most explosive team in the country, and they have great, not good, great pass rushing. They have 40 sacks this year. They are, hard to beat. But they let teams get back into it, like Wisconsin and Penn State.
Penn State.
That was the one that really opened my eyes on Penn State, to think that they're not just a paper mache champion here. They're pretty good, and then also what could happen to them if they get up big, they let teams back in. So, and Ohio State's capable of doing that to anybody.
Look forward to it. That's what, 4 or 5 o'clock our time on Wednesday.
For our time, yeah.
Our time. Yep. Rose Bowl. Set up nice too with Ohio State and former Oregon,
Yeah.
former Pac-12 member Oregon. So it'll be just like a regular Rose Bowl, on other than it being a lot more on the line in this one. So it should be fun. I know first, the quarterfinals were kind of blowouts, but I think this round's going to be really, really fun.
Yeah, I do too. You can't replicate the atmospheres. The atmospheres were off the charts. And I know that's probably scared the devil out of all the bowls. because now people are saying, wow, that's what we get. We get, iconic stadiums. None of them, I mean, all of them were iconic. Notre Dame, Ohio State,
Yep.
Penn State, Texas. In the future, you're going to get Bama, you're going to get Michigan, you're going to get Georgia. Maybe you get Camp Randall or even Kinnick at some
Yeah.
point, and Memorial Stadium in Nebraska. I don't want to get carried away, but the Coliseum in LA, Autzen Stadium. You're going to get the great ones, and to see those environments. And what was just so cool, like for me, I'd never been to Notre Dame, because we cover Iowa, and Iowa hasn't played Notre Dame. And
I
so,
know. I'm still waiting. Since
yeah,
1997, I've been waiting.
yeah, we're going to wait a while. Yeah. So that to me, that's the next phase, is expansion of the quarterfinals. And I have a column coming out tomorrow that I outline like 15 things that how they need to adapt and change the calendar
Mm.
for everything from the portal to recruiting to the season. And just not to bore everybody with the details of it, but I can kind of go into it in a little bit. Is one is move the portal into January, and get it like start it the Tuesday after Martin Luther King Day. Move spring football to June. Allow for that way. If you have those two connected, it slows the rush in December, where kids
Hmm.
feel like I got to hit the portal or I'm never going to
Yeah.
find a spot. A Bo Pribula situation, because the only thing you're doing then is going to school in the spring at a different
Yeah.
place. Along the piggyback from that is that your former school is required to help train you. So, like, if there are 10 guys at Iowa who hit the portal and they're going somewhere else, but they're on spring semester classes, the strength and conditioning group separately, not with the team, but like, let's say our workouts are at 6 o'clock, then they have to have somebody there supervising and working them through, because everybody's going to have this situation. It's only
Yep.
fair. Among the other things would be two mini camps in the spring. If you're moving spring football to June, you can have a 3-day mini camp in March and a 3-day mini camp in April. And schools will be allowed to pay for transportation for incoming freshmen who have signed and for transfers. So if you're taking, if you're signed and committed and you're at South Dakota State, but you're finishing out your degree, or like a Nick Jackson situation,
Mm.
you can fly him in, he's finishing his degree. Then move the season into week 0 is the start point. The end is Thanksgiving weekend if you have a championship game. If you don't have a championship game, then it is that week too, but that's when it ends. First round playoffs, first weekend of December, second round, third weekend of December, semifinals in 2 bowl games, and on January 1st. And then the championship would be a Friday, either the second or third Friday in January, depending on how the alignment of the dates. Get it away from the NFL. Don't mess around with the Mondays. And because I always think with college football is when it ends up on Monday, you're losing all your momentum because the NFL playoffs,
Yeah.
happening the weekend before. So recruiting, no signing day in December. And you have a fluid signing period from August 1st through mid-October. So you can sign, and those are the guys who can mid-year
Yep.
enroll. Instead of just making it a 1 day, it's like, you know what, I kind of like this. Let me take a few more visits or to look around. And then by like April 15th or October 15th, you can sign for good. And then remove it from December, because that way, again, you remove the portal, move this. It allows players to say, I want to finish my season with my teammates. I want
Yeah.
to go to a bowl
It's
game.
important.
And then by having the first round of the playoffs that early, the first weekend, that those losers can then play in bowl games. So if you're
Hmm.
losing like, as early as December 1st, it sucks for the coaching staff to say, damn, we lost our 15 practices.
Yeah.
Well, now you can have your 15 practices, and then the bowls that aren't in the playoff anymore have a bowl festival. So like, let's say this year it's the orange and the cotton would be the semifinals. Well, then the Rose Bowl could pick them from among those teams too. So,
Hmm.
so anyway, I've got it outlined in a column that goes tomorrow, and I'm sure it'll be chewed up, but I'm sure there's going to be some people that look at it and go, you know what, that's not a bad idea here and there. So Anything to further the conversation, because I think I even mentioned the coach's mental stress is off the charts. When you've got signing day 3 days before your championship games, and then you
There's
got the
just no
portal.
need to have to cram everything into like just a short period of time. I don't understand the urgency there. And sounds like you have some ideas that people can check out on The Athletic
Yeah,
tomorrow. Is that coming out tomorrow?
tomorrow. Yeah.
All right, check that out on The Athletic, along with all of the great work Scott does and his colleagues. They'll have great coverage from all the playoff games around that are happening on this next round, and all the other ball games and all other good stuff on The Athletic. So check them out. All right, Scott, have a safe trip. Everybody out there, have a happy new year. And Scott and I, you know what? We'll talk to you next year. Say goodbye, Scott.
Goodbye. Goodbye, Sky.